Republicans are making a real effort to have a balanced approach. Obviously the pundits are going to pundit, but the elected officials themselves, especially those that like to, wear a giant YouTube play button on their nose and pretend they didn't see crimes when they happened right in front of them. Those Republicans are like, look, we got to tap the brakes on this. We don't want anybody to overreact. We got to take it easy. This is all going to play itself out. Everybody's going to get their day in court, and we all just need to remain calm. I'm kidding. Republicans call on liberal DA to testify on possible Trump indictment. He will. You know when the DA will testify on the Trump indictment? Via the prosecutorial case. That's how a DA testifies about what they brought. You will see everything they have brought out in court. But let's see. Obviously, the guy who, obviously he hasn't seen anything. He doesn't know anything. I know nothing.
Well, they had to have known it was coming. The Biden.
Well, yeah, because he crimes and he crimes and he crimes, and eventually it had to catch up with him, even in this, Merrick Garland snail's pace.
Family under investigation. And at the center of it for now, millions of dollars from a Chinese energy firm. How?
No.
Ever.
First of all, you got to take the S off. Secondly, not from the energy firm. But other than that, you're doing great.
The crack in the armor of the Biden family, legally, that big payday is just the tip of the iceberg.
It better be.
The House Oversight Committee is diving deep and finding more foreign business deals.
Oh, yeah.
That are sketchy.
Yeah, they're sketchy. There's some sketchy. Yeah, they violate the Sketchy Act of 1970 sketchy.
Involving the now first family. I'm Harris Faulkner. You were in the...
Are you sure?
The Faulkner Focus.
Am I?
The committee says bank subpoenaed banking information will show some dozen.
Bank subpoenaed banking information. Sorry, what?
Bank subpoenaed banking information will.
Are you Joe Banks?
Show some dozen deals now. So far, records show Hunter Biden, president's brother James, his daughter-in-law Haley, and one other unknown for now, unnamed, unknown Biden, received payments from a Chinese firm. Here's the chairman of Oversight, Comer.
Right now, it looks like...
It looks like? Don't you have the paperwork? What is it? I don't care what it looks like. Tell me what it is.
The Biden family just pocketed this money.
Yes, that's why they own multiple million-dollar buildings in foreign countries that are adversaries. But oh no, wait, that's Trump.
This is one deal. We have 11 more to go, and I'm pretty confident we'll be getting more bank records in very soon. The White House hasn't been...
Yeah. Don't care.
Truthful about this from day one. I don't think the White House ever dreamed we would get bank records. I've got bad news for the White House. This is just the beginning. We're going to get a lot more bank records, and they're going to have to continue to backpedal and come up with some type of reason why the Biden families received millions and millions of dollars from our adversaries.
Well, I you know who I think really wants to know is the Chinese, because if indeed Biden got this money from the Chinese, they got fucked in that deal.
Oh, bank records. The ultimate in financial receipt.
I love when they take pictures of Biden when he's literally at events where people have died and just to show him frowning. Like they'll take pictures from when he visited Sicknick lying in state, and they'll use that picture to be like, uh-oh, I'm going to get busted.
And when asked about it, his family members getting that foreign money, here's what President Biden said. One sentence, that's not true. In focus, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. He's chairman of both the House Judiciary Committees and the new subcommittee
on train safety. I'm fucking with you. You didn't care anymore. That's old news.
Weaponization of the...
on chemicals being transported through small towns in America. They're doing a subcommittee to find out what went on and how to. I'm fucking with you.
The federal government. We'll get into that with him. He's also a member of oversight, a very busy person. All right.
He's very busy. He doesn't do anything, but he's very busy.
Let's start with these 12 other business deals. What are we learning?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Well, I think there's a couple fundamental questions, Harris. First of all, who's the unknown Biden? And then second, what was the service they were providing that warranted receiving all this money and these millions of dollars? I mean, what work did they do? What service? It's just like Shazam. Here shows up millions of dollars.
Oh, like the $15 million that Trump took out of his Chinese account in the middle of his presidency, where there was $17 million put in it magically or whatever. And it's strangely enough, at the same time his daughter got some of her trademarks pushed through really quickly, that kind of thing. I don't know. It sounds like you should look into those bank records too. I think look into any Chinese money transfers to any American citizen that didn't involve direct material shipments.
What did they do for it? I mean, those are, to me, are the fundamental questions.
Well, obviously, the Chinese paid the Biden family just under $1 million to keep all the Trump sanctions, ratchet up even more, create the CHIPS Act and destroy their tech industry, keep every advanced chip manufacturer from selling their chips or the fabrication material to China for the foreseeable future, maybe ever. And of course, starting the AUKUS agreement, the Australia, UK, and US agreement to give nuclear-powered submarines to Australia so that they can go around, they can do laps around Taiwan to protect them in case China decides to attack. Why would they pay them to do that? I have no idea. I think I'm not here to kink shame anyone.
That's what the committee's trying to get at. And I would always point out, too, that they're called suspicious activity reports for a reason.
Yes, because of the volume of money that happens to everybody post 9/11. It's like over $10,000.
The activity in these bank accounts is suspicious, so much so that the Treasury Department puts together these reports that were...
Yeah, so we should be suspicious. And we should, until our suspicions are, allayed by the information, we should be as suspicious as possible. And we should judge them right out, so that we can, if we're good at this, draw attention away from Donald Trump's very real and materially evidenced criminality.
Now finally getting access to and beginning to go through. So those, to me, are the fundamental questions. That's what Chairman Comer wants to get to the bottom of, so that the American people have the truth.
How long? When is this? Seriously. How hard would it be to figure out? You know what I mean? Like it seems it's so cut and dry, or maybe that's it. Maybe it's that they present it as so cut and dry. This is obvious. I mean, there's a lot of hinky shit here, but you could tell multiple crimes and it's all hinky and they're doing this stuff, that you would be able to kind of check the boxes pretty quick. You know, like Trump's defense of Vladimir Putin, the weird way he walked in after their private meeting, the fact that he didn't have note takers present and he used their translator when they would have these private meetings. And then he was doing them as many favors as he possibly could, and only really did anything against Russia when the Senate and the House made him. Lines up very much with the Alpha Bank server and the money laundering and human trafficking and drug crimes that were being, that the Russians were running out of Trump Tower was it the 21st floor or something like that, 16th floor, whatever it was, that he was engaging in. Like, that makes sense. That's pretty cut and dry. I don't know what the Chinese got in exchange for this money, or what they hoped to get in exchange. They certainly didn't get. And I don't see the Bidens, who are a legacy-oriented family, selling the whole thing out for chump change. It just seems like a cheap deal.
Even the left actually does not love the optics of the Biden family's China money.
Yes, the left doesn't like the optics. You mean the people who hated that he got the nomination and were mad that they had to vote for him? That group?
Trail. Let's watch together.
Let's watch it together.
And it doesn't sound good.
The left?
There's a guy whose name is John Robinson Walker. He gets $3 million from a Chinese-based company and proceeds to wire it out to a bunch of people named Biden, one of whom is Hunter Biden. Another one is a company that belongs to the president's brother, James Biden, and another amount of money to Beau Biden's widow, Hallie. So, again, from a layperson, that doesn't look good.
Yeah, so what? Oh, wait, $500,000 to Awaska PC, $360,000 to JBBSR Inc., $70,000 to a bank account labeled Biden, $25,000 to Hallie Biden. So is the $70,000 for the unknown Biden, is that to Hunter directly? And the $25,000 is to Hallie because that's the guy who he's having direct business with. And the problem is that they want this one to be the big guy.
It doesn't smell good, she said.
You're talking to a man who knew of ongoing sexual assault at OSU and hid it. People were being sexually assaulted, and Jim Jordan ran interference for the person committing the crime. Please continue.
That's code for how are we going to cover him and cover this?
Yeah.
Is it?
It doesn't look good, and it's suspicious.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck if it's suspicious. We can't go on together with suspicious minds. Jim, you're caught in a trap.
Jim Jordan, not Jamie Comer, saying that it's suspicious according to the United States Treasury Department, to Janet Yellen's agency. They're the ones who said this all looks suspicious, and that's why they put together these reports that we're going to go through.
Are those the only financial transfers that look like that? Is there a reason why they didn't think the $15,000 Trump took out of the Chinese bank account was suspicious? Oh, because he transferred it to himself, and the transfer of those funds into that account happened outside the country. Oh.
You know what? Let me ask you about something, though, just in terms of suspicious activity reports.
I'm caught in a trap. I can't walk out.
How common are they? How common would it be that you'd have north of 150 on a single individual? Just talk to me about what they really are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this volume of suspicious activity reports is probably somewhat unprecedented. I'm sure they happen. I'm sure there's...
Yeah, I'm sure they happen. I'm sure if we look for some around Trump, we would find some. We're not going to. Don't panic.
Legitimate reasons why people can explain, oh, here's why this happened, and okay, no problem. We initially thought it was suspicious. Now,
right. That's how this is going to play out.
Now maybe it's not.
Now maybe it's not.
But when you have this number, all about this family...
Because I love you too much, baby. Thanks, David. I appreciate that.
And again, I think this account, the one that Mr. Comer's talked about, Chairman Comer's talked about a lot, where this $3 million shows up, I think he said before that there was very little money in this account. And then all of a sudden, here comes $3 million.
Weird. So let me get this right. So there was this account that has very little money in it. And at some point, let's see. So there was this account, and it had, at some point, it had very little money in it. And then all of a sudden it does. When he hasn't been demonizing immigrants, screaming about Democrat-run cities, or gutting regulations created to combat climate change, Donald Trump has focused so much of the last 4 years supposedly fighting China like no other president has the guts to. Despite having nothing to show for the alleged hard line with Beijing, the president's trade war has cost U.S. taxpayers, and he's praised Xi Jinping as the coronavirus spread across the globe. Trump has spent months insisting that if Joe Biden wins, America will be in bed with the authoritarian nation. Nobody in 50 years has been weaker on China than sleepy Joe Biden. Meanwhile, of course, as we know from Biden's tax returns, which he released in contrast to Trump, the former vice president doesn't have any income or business dealings with China. But you know who does? The New York Times has an idea. It turns out that China is one of only 3 foreign nations, the others are Britain and Ireland, where Mr. Trump maintains a bank account. According to an analysis of the president's tax returns, the foreign accounts do not show up on Mr. Trump's public financial disclosures. Weird. Remember when he said, you've got all the stuff, it's in my public disclosures, you just look at those. You could see I'm a very successful guy. You don't need to look at the taxes. Well, that's because this was on the taxes, but was not in those documents. The Chinese account is controlled by Trump International Hotels Management, which tax records show paid $188,561 in taxes in China, when he paid a year that he paid $750 in taxes in the United States. In 2017, the company reported an unusually large spike in revenue, some $17.5 million, more than the previous 5 years combined. It was accompanied by a $15.1 million withdrawal by Mr. Trump from the company's capital account. That was when he was President of the United States of America. That was this is, by the way, the same year that these alleged hinky payments, these suspicious transfers happened to Biden. This happened to Trump. And Biden was no longer vice president, and in no way was anyone expecting him to run next time because of his age and because it had just been Hillary and it was going to be too late and blah, blah, blah. But Trump was president of the United States when this money showed up and when he withdrew it. In addition to the existence of a Chinese bank account controlled by a company that just happened to record 8 figures worth of revenue during Trump's first year in office, the Times report that shortly after he won election, Trump sold a penthouse in one of his buildings for $15.8 million to a Chinese-American businesswoman named Xiaoyan Chen, who runs an international consulting firm and reportedly has high-level connections to government and political elites in China. In a statement, Alan Garten, a lawyer for the Trump Organization, said Trump International Hotels Management had opened an account with a Chinese bank having offices in the United States in order to pay the local taxes related to attempts to do business there, adding that no deals, transactions, or other business activities ever materialized, and since 2015, the office has remained inactive. Yes, he had a fake office for a fake company, and money was put into this fake company's fucking account. That's not helping. In related news, earlier this week, the Times separately reported an extremely disturbing story concerning diplomats in China who, in 2018, were seemingly victims of an attack similar to the ones on their colleagues in Havana in 2016 and 17. Both groups experienced sudden headaches, blurred vision, dizziness, and memory loss. But while the administration withdrew embassy staff in Cuba, expelled Cuban diplomats from Washington, said U.S. diplomats had experienced targeted attacks, and blamed Cuba, the families, its approach to what happened in China was suspiciously different. The administration took a softer approach with China. In May 2018, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was the CIA director during the Cuba events, told lawmakers that the medical details of one American official who had fallen ill in China were very similar and entirely consistent with the syndrome in Cuba. The administration evacuated more than a dozen people, blah, blah, blah. While the officers in Cuba were placed on administrative leave for rehabilitation, those in China initially had to use sick days and unpaid leave, some officers and their lawyers say, and the State Department did not open an investigation into what happened in China. By the way, that's the same time that Trump dropped the rules on gain-of-function research.
And as you point out...
Yeah, because Obama put a pause on gain-of-function research, and Trump took that pause off.
Then it's paid out to people all with the same last name, and one of them being the unknown Biden. So that's a concern. And again, I think the American people are entitled to know what was going on here.
All right, we're about to break.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way about Trump's bank account when he was president of the United States, engaging in trade deals and other negotiations with China, where he softballed everything up until COVID kicked his ass, up until he realized he'd been suckered and was mad that it was going to cost him the election.
Some news here with you, because we are the first to receive and can publicly report a letter that you have sent out that starts this way. You are reporting.
Oh, really? Did you just happen to get this letter with him on the show? What are the odds? Huh.
Reportedly about to engage in an unprecedented abuse of prosecutorial authority. This is the case against former President Donald Trump and the New York District Attorney.
Yes, somber. Let's change. It's like one of those morning show TV, like local network news, when they have to go from the heartwarming story about a puppy that was found after 6 days in a snowdrift to the awful car crash on the 405.
Could choose to indict Trump. Charges would relate to hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. Former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andy McCarthy with this a bit earlier.
Yes.
I think it's clearly a misdemeanor. It's one that shouldn't be brought.
Yeah, I mean, Trump should not have to face any legal ramifications of anything that he does.
And the attack on Bragg
I agree, Melissa. Joe does love his son.
here, it shouldn't be a defense of Trump, because it looks like this is a falsification of records. But the attack on Bragg ought to be that no one who was not Donald Trump would conceivably be charged with this.
Well, it's also, the crime and the cover-up, the contribution in kind, and the fact that he didn't do it just to save his marriage. He did it to bamboozle the American public. I would like to remind everyone that this asshole right here is the guy who wants to believe that he saw a poll at one point that if the electorate of the United States knew that Hunter Biden was a crack addict and all this stuff that was supposedly on the fake laptop, if the voters knew, 17% of Democrats wouldn't have voted for him. He believes that. He sells that as an idea. And that he deserves a do-over in the fucking election because they were denied this evidence, right? That's his case. He makes that all the time. And I would argue that that is precisely the same circumstance in terms of had evangelicals known about this Stormy Daniels affair and the Karen McDouglas one, I think, as well, during that time, who he had paid hush money to, or any of the other people that he's signed NDAs with, that had they known, they wouldn't have supported his candidacy, and they would have, more than likely, the Republicans would have run Kasich or fucking Jeb Bush during that time. But apparently, the law must be one-sided because, I mean, look at that Punim. Look at that nunt. There's no way.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy
Andy McCarthy. Andy!
tweeted this over the weekend. I'm directing relevant committees to immediately investigate if federal funds are being used to subvert our democracy by interfering in elections with politically motivated prosecutions.
They aren't. But by the way, they weren't until now. Because right now, that's what you're doing. I'm directing relevant committees to immediately investigate. That requires the use of federal funds to find out if federal funds are being used to subvert our democracy by interfering in elections with politically motivated prosecutions. This is the waste of money part. Yes, you are wasting that money defending someone to make sure he gets a shot when he doesn't deserve it.
Congressman, you head up one of those committees that would be talked about by McCarthy. So we are now ending, per you, the embargo on this. Tell me about this letter and what you're seeking.
Well, yeah, this letter comes at the direction of the Speaker for the House Administration Committee, the House Oversight Committee, Chairman Comer, Chairman Stile, and then Judiciary Committee. And we've sent this letter to Mr. Bragg saying we want to talk to you. We want to know what's going on here. We want to see the communications that have taken place between the Federal Justice Department and your District Attorney's office there in Manhattan.
And this all started, by the way, before he was a candidate running for office. So what is the legal basis for why you have any say in this? He chose to run for office and be a candidate for office after he was he had communications to his lawyers that he was in this kind of trouble, after they had already negotiated with the Manhattan DA. So it's none of your fucking business. He didn't run for office and then they sprang this on him. He got called out on this shit and found out from his lawyers that this is actually coming, and he tried to run for office to head it off, and you're helping him.
Understand, Harris. First they went after President Trump on Russia. Then it was a phone.
Which, if Barr hadn't run interference and if the Senate hadn't kept him from getting removed from office, he would have been out before COVID hit.
Phone call with Zelensky. Then they wanted his tax returns. Then they go after his business records. Then they go after his children.
No, they went after his business records, and now his CFO is in fucking jail.
And now it's some misdemeanor alleged bookkeeping error.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Apparently, it's very suspicious, Jim. And maybe it's just suspicious. Maybe we'll find out later that it's just suspicious. But I think it's very suspicious, and we should look into stuff that's suspicious. You know what I mean? Because there's this unknown, these money changing hands, and there's this Chinese bank account, and all. It's very suspicious, Jim. It's very suspicious.
That they're going to, and this is from.
We can go on together with suspicious minds. With suspicious. Sorry, I didn't move the hand for the background singers. Sorry, I'm gonna do that because the Elvis movie, aren't I?
The prosecutor who initially didn't want to do this. In fact, he had people resign because he wasn't going to do this because no one else will bring this case.
They resigned. No, they resigned because he wouldn't bring the case. They're like, there's a ton of criminality here. Why are you not bringing this? This is political. You are running interference for Donald Trump. You are using the mask of being a left-leaning prosecutor, or a DA in this particular case. You're using that mask as cover for the rich elites in New York.
I mean, the DOJ didn't bring the case. The Federal District of New York didn't bring the case. The previous prosecutor in the district there in Manhattan didn't bring the case. Mr. Bragg himself didn't want to bring the case, but then he got pressured, I think, from the left. And I would say this.
The left. Yeah, from the people that left.
The one thing that has changed, the one thing that I think has changed his mind is President Trump announced he was going to run for president again. And suddenly here they go. Now they're coming after him for some alleged bookkeeping error.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's how I would describe it in court. A bookkeeping error. Yeah, Michael Cohen went down defending a bookkeeping error. Good Lord.
You've got to be kidding me. So
no, it's like watching. I thought he was good at wrestling, and now he only wrestles straw men of his own creation.
We want to know what kind of federal involvement may have taken place here. And we want to know, did this stem from the Mueller special counsel investigation getting to this point as well?
All right. And you hit the nail on the head. I want to ask about what
Did they pass off all the information because Mueller stopped because Bill Barr ran interference and our plan to subvert justice failed?
happens if federal money was used, because actually paying off Stormy Daniels as hush money, as we would call it, is not illegal in the state of New York.
No, it's not. It's illegal if you're funneling money to your campaign or you're using it as a mask for your campaign, and you know that that's why you're doing it. So you're and you're aware that it's wrong, so you send it through a lawyer who delivers it for you, and then you reimburse him for that money because you have an awareness that it breaks the law because your lawyer who went to jail later told you it was.
As I've read it, so how does the federal money play a role if federal dollars were used for that?
Well, we wouldn't use for that. Federal dollars may be involved. We're talking with the district attorney's office there, where federal funds there, the federal nexus to us.
Yeah, she was a little confused there, but I don't think she's. I don't know. I take it back. Maybe she does think that he meant federal this whole time. She thinks he meant federal money, like the government paid Stormy Daniels through him.
But yeah, I think, what did they want President Trump did? Was he supposed to use campaign money? You can't do that. So this
was campaign money. That's the whole point.
This is, I think, just a ridiculous case.
First of all, second, prove it wasn't. I can't wait for this fucking trial. I'm very excited. I want to know exactly where that $135,000 came from, because not only did he go cheap on it, I'm just saying for the record that if I ever run for office and I have to pay off a mistress, they're getting at least $250,000. I mean, honestly, they've been through enough. It should at least be, a down payment and the first, year's worth of mortgage payments. Come on, for after all she went through.
That they are bringing,
as
I
one
think
does.
The people of this country understand it's ridiculous. We want to talk to Mr. Bragg. We're asking him for the communications he's had with the federal government. We're asking him to come in and testify. We'd like an answer by Thursday of this week.
All right.
Yeah, you're not going to get
Real quickly, if federal dollars were used then by Alvin Bragg or anyone in his office to go after Trump, what happens?
Well, that's a concern for us. We want to know what kind of communications may have taken place between the Justice Department and, because remember,
oh, for fuck's sake. All right. They literally want to reshape the legal system in this country so that local DAs cannot reach out to the federal investigators and put us right back in the position we were in years ago when the mafia and drug dealers and serial killers could escape, getting thrown in a federal prison because by hopping state to state. This is the Ted Bundy defense.
Justice Department didn't bring this case. They weren't going to do it. No one was going to do this until Mr. Bragg came along. That to me is a real concern.
Well, that's because it's a specific violation of state law in this particular instance.
Here. So, and this is the same district attorney where there's now record crime in New York, where he downgrades most felonies to
we know.
misdemeanors. The felony cases he brings, yeah, you're right there. The felony cases he brings, he loses half of them, and now he's going after.
Well, then what are you worried about? What are you worried about? I mean, if, honest to God, if any of what they're saying is true about Trump or even like who he is, if any of Trump's mythology were true, shit, if I was in this situation or you were, wouldn't you just roll up and go, take me in. This is fucking ridiculous. Here you go. Yeah. No. Cuff me and shackle me. That's the rule. This is the United States of America. If I'm coming in and you're actually going to indict me, you're going to treat me like every other prisoner, and I'm going to face you in a court of law. Absolutely. You don't get to not handcuff me. I'm going to stand there and go, look at this shit. Look at what is happening here. And I'm going to walk around going, like, put him behind my back. You can't trust me. I'm a badass. And walk me in there and go, and then I will make them uncuff me during the hearing and apologize. And then I will walk out of here and fucking smoking a giant cigar or something. Like, if any of the myth that's supposed to be true about Trump was true at all, that's how they'd be handling it. Instead, everybody around him is going, well, his attorney says he's going to show up, but he might hole himself up in the tower of Mar-a-Lago and just stay there.
The former president and a guy who's announced.
Thank you, Water Goddess. Maybe I am, but in that situation, that's how you handle it. Especially if you're innocent and you're being. Let me look at any political prisoner worth their stuff. Goes, gladly. I will. I'll say my piece in court. It's so weird.
For president, and who's his star witness? Who's his key witness? Michael Cohen.
Right. His fixer. A guy who, by the way, Harris, you might recall, he had two clients, and then they found a third, and that third client of Michael Cohen's was a friend of yours. He's on your network. He's up in about 4 hours, I think, actually, after your show. Sean Hannity, you might know him.
Guy we all know has lied, who came in front of the Oversight Committee a few years ago and lied 6 times.
On behalf of Donald Trump.
In front of Congress. That's their star witness for this case that no one else would bring. If this is not
hashtag the best people
going after your political opponents and using the government to do so.
$135,000 would be a lot of cat food for Chud. I agree, Bald Thanos. That's true.
I don't know what is.
Congress.
You don't know what is. If there was any real justice in this man or in Harris Faulkner, he would blurt out, or she would demand him to confess what he did at OSU and seek forgiveness for it from the victims. The idea that this, anyways.
Congressman Jim Jordan, thank you very much.
Blah, 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 blah.